Hi, what's up guys? And today we're going to be going over graphing. Now, I have a math test in less than 18 hours and I realized that one of the best ways that you can review your work is to learn by teaching. So, here are some basic review concepts that you will need to know for graphing. Some of the first concepts that you will need to grasp for graphing is the vertical line test. Now, this is a function. Can I tell you what a function is? No, because I can't really explain it verbally, but I can show it to you visually. This graph is a function. How do we know that, you might be asking? Well, as you can clearly see, this line only passes through each point on the x-axis exactly once, making this graph a function. If you look at this graph, for example, it's not a function because of the fact that there are multiple points on the same x value. It's very easy to tell if a graph is a function or not. Basically, if the x repeats more than once, it's not a function. The next thing that we will be going over is transformations. First, we can take a look at the easiest type of transformation. That is the transformation on the y-axis. In graphing, you can identify a transformation on the y-axis by looking at the end of the equation. Take this for example. The graph y equals x is a graph that's literally on a vertical line, with a slope of 1, of course. And how can you tell if there's a transformation on the y-axis? Well, the equation y equals x minus 1 is just y equals x, but shifted down 1 point. Next, we can go over transformations on the x-axis. For example, the graph y equals the absolute value of x minus 1 is literally just the exact same graph as y equals x, just shifted over to the right 1 point. Now that you know about that, I can talk about reflections. If a graph has a negative before the slope, more likely than not, it's a reflection. For example, y equals x to the second power is basically the same thing as y equals negative x to the second power, just reflected. Now, let's go over the different types of graphs in graphing. There are 8 graphs that I need to know about, but there are only really 7 graphs that are kind of relevant to my test tomorrow. Those graphs are the y equals x graph, the y equals x squared graph, the y equals x cubed graph, the y equals the absolute value of x graph, the y equals 1 over x graph, the y equals the square root of x graph, the y equals bx graph, and the weird the circle graph that nobody cares about. Alright, let's go over each one individually. 1, the y equals x graph. That is a vertical line.
Thanks, Captain Obvious.
I know, thank you. The y equals x squared graph is a parabola.
Thanks, Captain Obvious.
I know, thank you. The y equals x cubed graph is, well, I don't know how to describe the shape, but it's kind of funky. The y equals the absolute value of x graph is a v.
Thanks, Captain Obvious.
I know, thank you. The y equals 1 over x graph is, well, I don't know how to describe this either, but it does have 2 asymptotes, which is pretty cool. The y equals the square root of x is, well, it's kind of like a hill, except without a fall. It just goes up. The y equals bx graph it has 1 asymptote. There you go. And the circle graph, nobody really cares about. Alright, those are the types of graphs, and that is it for my review on the different types of graphs in graphing. Thank you for joining me today, and I will see you next time when I decide to make one of these stupid videos again, because they're actually really fun to make. I just don't want to admit it. And yeah, okay, bye.